Welcome to the Awaken on Purpose podcast, where each week you'll receive insight, inspiration, and advice for aligning your mind, body, and spirit to achieve a fulfilled life and live your purpose with me, your host, Jennifer Spohr. You'll also hear from other leaders who share their inspirational stories and wisdom in living fulfilled, on purpose, and making an impact. If you're a mission-driven leader and you're passionate about learning and integrating all the things that empower you to live and lead a fulfilled, purpose-led life, this is the show for you. Hey everyone, it's my pleasure to welcome as a guest to the show today, Melissa Kirk. Melissa Kirk Consulting offers the comprehensive capabilities and deep industry knowledge necessary to help you solve the most complex issues of your inner blueprint. People hire Melissa to get results they've sought after, explore her out-of-the-box ideas, use her expertise to find and align with their passion and purpose, shift their mindset to be empowered, and create the lifestyle they desire. Sounds like it's right up my alley. Welcome, Melissa.
Thank you. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. I'm excited to have this conversation and to share more of you with everybody. So tell us more about what actually inspired you to get into this work.
So, we all go on a journey. I had a journey that I was married young, went to college, had a business and psych degree, and worked in the corporate world for a while. And then I stayed home with my kids when I started having kids several years later. But I was in a pretty abusive relationship that kind of spiraled my life and my health and everything kind of downward. And when I finally got the courage to leave the situation, I kind of had to reinvent myself. So a lot of the things I'm doing with my clients is, the journey I went on of finding again who I am, what I was about, what I'm passionate about, and rediscovering myself. So one of the things I learned along the journey was how out of alignment was with my actual natural gifts and abilities. And I didn't even know what I was passionate about anymore. So one of the first pieces that started me on this journey was getting my hands read, starting with human. So that's called scientific hand analysis, and it talks about what your purpose is and what holds you back. And also doing a human design and astrology, and just learning that my gifts and talents really focus on my verbal communication, my message and the way that I deliver it, and the way of taking complicated information and making it easy to understand. And at the time I was in doing massage as my career. And so what I was realizing was I was never finding any fulfillment in what I was doing, because I was in a dark room all day with one person that I wasn't supposed to talk. And here I am, built to be in being seen and have a verbal message. So that's one of the things. It was such a powerful awareness to me. And I, as a psychology major and having a psychology degree, we did a lot of different, like DISC and profiles and things where you're answering questions to discover, like, what are you a good match for? Well, in the place that I was, I never would have discovered that it was about my verbal communication, because I was so shut down after all the abuse. I didn't have any confidence. I didn't want anyone looking at me. I couldn't have come to that realization on my own. And so that's the reason why I feel so compelled to share all of the things that are coming from your natural birthplace and your natural birth chart. And, when I work with my clients, it's like I'm giving them permission to be themselves and pointing out really where their gifts are, and so that they can actually acknowledge them, because I was not acknowledging anything that was in my charts. So it really gave me an empowerment to go on my healing journey and heal the wounds of my past, and then learn how to help my clients on the same path and work and align their charts and their information and their natural self with their business and every aspect of their life. And so, it's just really fun to see somebody become aware of things that they had no idea, and see them just walk into their natural abilities and, start creating the results and the business and the relationships, and just the whole, all of over their whole life is just around what makes them tick and makes them thrive, and just brings this fulfillment and happiness that I was really missing for a lot of years.
There's just so much to unpack from everything you just shared, figuring out even where to start. I mean, I'd love to start with, when you talked about summoning the courage, essentially, to leave that relationship. I mean, if you're okay with it, I'd love for you to share with us just a little bit more how that actually came about, because whether it's in an abusive relationship, there are certainly other circumstances and scenarios as well. And that's really, one of those initial big steps, right, toward starting to rediscover who you are. So how did you, what was your defining moment, or how did you summon the courage to finally make the change?
Well, one thing that was happening is, so again, like if I refer to my astrology, I have a Libra moon. And what that means is that relationships, because Libra is the part of the chart that's about relationships, and relationships really affect your health. So the first thing that was happening for me was that my health was deteriorating. So I got to a point where I felt like I didn't have much choice but to leave, or I was probably going to be dead. But I think that it took me to a really rock bottom, raw place of kind of despair of, not feeling like I even had a choice anymore if I wanted to make anything different in my life. So, and I really like helping people to not have to get to that point before they make that change. And there is also something in my human design chart that makes it a little bit challenging for me to leave toxic situations. And so when I started to understand what my natural design was and what the shadow sides are, right? Sometimes the shadow side and the part that is the anti part of your makeup gives you more information about what the struggles are and what holds you back and what makes you feel gripped. So I just really, one thing, it was circumstantial because we were financially going through some rough times, and we were making decisions that we were going to move. And my ex actually moved out of state before I did. And actually having that physical separation really helped me to start to be able to stand on my own 2 feet. And I started to get a lot more of awareness and get a lot of clarity that this really wasn't going to work for me going forward. So, but I mean, it can be such a hard thing for some people to, some people just move right out of relationship and they decide in a spur of the moment that this isn't working. And other people feel really stuck. So I like helping the people to be empowered. One of the big pieces in my chart and in my makeup is about empowering others and giving them a perception and a vision of something that they can't see on their own. And so, and a lot of it I think is support. I had family support, and I was getting asking for help that I needed, that I didn't used to ask for. It was something that was a new thing for me to actually feel like I could ask for support. So everybody has a different thing that's holding them stuck, and a lot of that is going to show up in their chart. And so that's why I love them being empowered by finding who they are and really being able to step into it and being that bridge to where they are, to bridge the gap to where they're going. And I feel like a lot of the tools I have really help with that.
Yeah. Oh, now I just have 2 questions that I have to ask. Thank you so much for sharing that. And yeah, so on that note, tell us more about the work that you're doing with the human design, the astrology, and the hand analysis, and then how that either enhances or complements forging a deeper connection with one's intuitive ability?
Well, if you look at any of your natural charts, it shows where there's kind of a setup for, the soul decides a path that it's going to take and what it wants to work on, and then it creates the path in which to do it. And so a lot of times when you're looking at someone's chart, you can see, like in their astrology, that they're going to be met with these struggle, that this is something they're here to overcome. A lot of times when you're looking at the human design chart, you look at what their nodes are saying, because the south node is kind of information that you came in with through your DNA, things that you've worked on before that your soul has information about. And the north node is like where you're going, what you want to accomplish. And so it gives some real big pointers as to where to look and find the interpretation of it. But what happens is when you come up against these struggles, there's a feeling deep within, I think, that when you know that it was what your plan was on your soul's journey, it kind of gives you like this, I can do this. This is what I'm here for, and I'm designed for this work. So I think it's really empowering to kind of understand. I think the same thing, relations that people are kind of going through together. And when you look at the astrology that's happening, you have a lot of answers as to, there's no way for us to get out of this. We're going to have to go through the process because it's what's in the astrology. And, I've just through the last few years, I've just found that how much sense everything makes. And it helps me from, going down into a dark hole and knowing, that you kind of know that you're going to come out of it, that there's a reason for it. And, I have a tendency to want to resist, right? And want to not deal with something. And so that resistance sometimes makes me, the knowing that it's perfect for what's going on, perfect for the situation, perfect for the circumstances to get us to the other side.
Yeah.
Sometimes just keeps you going. So, and there's so many indications out there when you know where to look. And it's empowering to know that, there's light at the end of the tunnel.
I mean, in regard to, astrology, human design, I mean, it makes sense just even logically, because there is a connection, to everything. Yeah. I'm more of a beginner when it comes to human design. So I did actually start studying my own chart and had a couple private sessions with someone. And I would actually highly recommend that someone reach out to you to have that done, because I thought it was very informative. And I'm someone who's very deep in the path of, personal development. I study the Akashic records. I teach intuitive development and all this other stuff. But for me, I discovered in my human design that I'm a projector, amongst some other things, which explained a lot of some of the, let's just say, mysteries in my life, right? Some recurring things, some things that kept happening. It really actually gave me some insight as to the why, and helped me to make some changes, some more sustainable changes. So yeah, I think it's a fantastic tool.
Yeah. I love when a projector is out of alignment with their natural way of operating, because it's such a quick fix. Like if they can just shift a couple things and their whole world changes, it's really exciting.
Yeah, for me, because, being a projector, obviously it's like kind of getting more done with less, basically. But it explains so much, especially in business and in the mentality that so many people are actually programmed with, which is like that hustle mentality, that working hard. I mean, that's not actually healthy for anyone. But for me, based upon my chart, it was completely out of alignment with who I who I am, which explained a lot. So yeah, I definitely recommend someone reach out to you. There's definitely a lot of value in having that. Something else I'd love to touch on with you is mindset. And mindset is pretty streamlined term. Most people are familiar with it. How can leveraging the tools that you describe actually complement someone's mindset?
Okay, so mindset really is how your approach is to a problem. It's
Mm-hmm.
what the patterns and programs in your brain and however you believe something operates is what your brain will search for evidence of to support those beliefs.
Mm-hmm.
But that doesn't mean that it's right. It doesn't mean that it's truth. It means it's what's true for you.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the things is I think that when you start to really understand what you're here for and what you're not, you kind of let yourself off the hook. It changes your mindset when you learn you're a projector and that you have a certain formula of getting invited in situations, not giving unsolicited advice, and that you don't have the same energy as around you. That is life changing. But if you the whole time and you're through your whole life, you are around people with high energy charts and high energy ability, and you're always comparing yourself to them, right? You're always finding how you're less than because you can't keep up energetically when you're just not designed to do it. So it's like these tools help you to be the hammer. If you're born a hammer and you're trying to be a screwdriver, it
Yeah.
doesn't work. So when you just figure out what tool you are and how you're designed to operate, it changes your mindset because you start to get yourself off the hook of being something you're not. And you start to embrace the things that you are good at, and it puts you in your right lane, right? And if you're in the right lane and you stay in your lane, that's your lane for success. And all of these tools will teach you like which lane you're supposed to be in. And it's not about comparing you to other people. One of the things that, about coaching that I think is so hard is that what works for one person doesn't work for everybody.
Right.
And so when I incorporate the human design stuff into the coaching, I can specifically tell you your formula and what will work for you rather than what worked for me, what works for everybody else. And it's very custom tailored to your skill set. And it sets someone up for empowerment and success rather than setting you up for failure and discouragement. So all these tools point you in the right direction that if you embrace them and start aligning your life with it, the success is a byproduct. It's like not going after making money, just going after doing what you love the way that you love to do it. And that energy that you have, the because it lifts your vibration, right? It makes you connect with your passion and you experience success on a whole new level, which then catapults you into something even more and something better. It just keeps getting better and better because you keep rising to the occasion. And then what you're good with, what I find is that most people try to overcome their things they're not good at, and they spend all this time trying to overcome the things that really they're not designed to do, and they think that if they keep at it that they'll get better at it. What I teach my clients is figure out what you love and do that at least 80% of the time.
Yeah.
Most of the other things in the business that you hate, you dread, you procrastinate, those can be done by somebody else who actually loves to do that at a much more efficient and cheaper energy exchange and for less money than what it's taking you to do it when it's a struggle.
Absolutely. Something else I'd love to touch on, because I find this is such a common issue, is that someone can have the desire on their heart, right, to change. They can even learn and be armed with all of the right tools, but there can still be a lack of willingness to apply that into action. And I find that more often than not, trauma actually plays a significant factor in that, right? Because there are sometimes there can be deeper rooted things that are causing the person to hesitate. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, there's lots of ways that we sabotage ourselves. And one of the ways that we can is, because of our fears. So a lot of people have a bigger fear of success than they do of failure. And what would happen if
Yes.
they were successful?
Yes, so true.
Yeah.
Yes.
So really looking at what the motivation is behind our behaviors, and it goes deep. It's in the unconscious mind, and that's part of the mindset. And it's part of, like, I do and teach theta healing, NLP. I've done hypnosis, things like that. Those are working with the unconscious mind. That is a way of rewiring the brain so that we don't go down those same programs. Like, if you were to get into a relationship, what's the problem with it? Well, then they're going to try to control me, or then they're going to, all of our beliefs come up to it, up on an unconscious level. So then we find ourselves always at 3 months when they're getting really intimate and they're getting like more locked in a relationship. We get even more scared and triggered, and then we sabotage because we haven't faced the wound of that. It doesn't always have to end in disaster. It doesn't mean because you're in a relationship, you're going to be controlled. And facing whatever it is, it's different for everybody. But when you uncover what the programs are for within you, then you can start getting a new experience. I've worked with people that were afraid that they would offend their parents if they made more money than their parents. And so they were at this ceiling every time. They would bump up against making what their parents made, and then they would sabotage things because, and they have no idea that this is going on. It's on an unconscious level. But when you really dig into that, you can get in there and heal the wounds. You can get in there and address the fears, and then you create a new experience moving forward. It's really powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm just coming up with all kinds of things I want to ask you about. I mean, the stuff that in real life, that people really deal with. That's one thing about the personal development industry, is there are a lot of amazing people, healers, coaches, consultants that are out there. But at the same time, I refer to it as toxic positivity. I feel like there's also an issue in our industry where sometimes people aren't going to the depth that I feel that they need to help people achieve sustainable transformation. Like you talked about, the person you provided an example of where they hit a ceiling. It's almost like, there are certain tools or directions being provided, and then people kind of hit a certain block, and there are very clear common issues, right? Like with the trauma, and the willingness to take applied action that happen. I'm really loving this conversation. So so something in regard to the current world climate, right? It's like, because I do similar work to you in the sense that I help people gain clarity on their path as well. And more than ever, with what we're experiencing in the world, I feel like people more and more every day are reflecting on, how they've been living their lives and what's more important to them, and pursuing what they love, right? And having experienced this on my own journey, working in corporate, being in a certain leadership role, and then switching to becoming an entrepreneur was a big shift. What would be your advice to those people who are contemplating making a change?
Yeah, I think that you really have to look at the fears behind it and what, a lot of times we have all these fears that we've conjured up in our head, and they really don't have support behind them, right? It's just stuff that we're making up, and it keeps us in sabotage and it keeps us stuck. So one of the things I think is that when you understand what your design is and what you're good at and what you're here to do, and you can start embracing it, you'll see that the path unfolds a lot faster for you down that path. That road will come available, and it will be swift because it's what you're designed for. And I think part of the problem is that people don't, we're very into, as a society, into security. And I think that's what's been a lot of the turmoil over the last couple of years, is that our security is kind of gone. There's so much unknown. And I think that when we can get over having to know everything and being able to take the path that's being shown to us, what happens is that our happiness becomes more of the priority. When we're starting to, come up against our freedoms being imposed on, we're starting to realize how important they are, which you may not have realized before. And so I think just as we get more awareness about ourselves and about, what we want to create for the future and what things aren't working, and connecting with what we're really passionate about, and finding the support around you, finding the people that think the same as you and are on the same journey with you, and partnering with people, supporting each other, just like, we do similar things in transforming people's lives, but yet it doesn't have to be a competition. Like, we all have our space in which we do it.
Right, exactly.
And along my journey, for the last 15, 20 years, I've worked with hundreds of different coaches and, systems and everything to kind of like pick and choose what works best for me. And when you put those things together, you realize there isn't any competition. You realize that there's plenty for everybody. And that's a lot of what the problem is right now, is a lot of greed and a lot of, trying to be at our best by hurting other people. When if you come to the clarity of who you are and where you're going, how to be your authentic self, no one can do things the way that you do it. And I think that starts to come out. And when people can see that, they're drawn to that, because it's the authenticity that we're hiding, that, we're afraid of being rejected by others or not fitting in and things like that. So my biggest thing that I always teach my clients is be who you are. Figure out on a genetic level who you are and what you stand for. And it really smooths out all those feelings of fear, because you're standing in your own power of who you are and in your authenticity. And I think that's very enticing, and it draws people to you because they want that and they trust you. It builds trust because they think this person's real.
Absolutely. Yeah, I say something similar too, and the key to navigating through anything, any uncertainty, is just being clear in your sense of self, right? When you have that foundation, you're always going to land.
Yes.
You're always going to land. And so much of that fear that you're talking about, I believe, comes from that programming that many of us experience almost from birth, around that the solution to anything we want or desire lies externally outside of us. Yes, we need money to pay our bills and a roof over our heads and food and certain things, right? But ultimately, our happiness or even our sense of security it really lies within. It's really more of a state of being. And when we learn that and project that out, then we're literally able to change our physical reality.
Yeah. And also knowing, like, that gives you power. All the answers reside within you. You don't need, something outside of you to make it work. And I think that when you look at that place of being in a sense of empowerment and being able to own who that is, then, that's your first step of making the break.
Yeah, absolutely. I could talk to you for days. This is great. I love the work that you do. In closing, is there anything else that you're feeling guided to bring forward?
I think that anyone that is really searching and lost, because that's where I was when I started on my journey. The most important thing I think that you can do is figure out what motivates you, where your drive is, what purpose you're here for, because we all have a purpose and we all have something to deliver, and that only we can deliver. And I think that if that is your focus to get to the next level, that's the fastest path, is understanding why you're here, who you want to work with, who you're here to impact, and be more of you. Finding your authentic self, I think, is the building block and the foundation for creating success going forward.
Definitely. And we're going to include all of your information in the show notes, but what would be just the easiest, most direct way for someone to connect with you?
You can always go to my website. It's Melissa Kirk, KIRK.com. And there's a place on there where you can set up a discovery call, or you can see the kinds of services I do and things like that. And I love having discovery calls because we usually end up landing somewhere, customized programs, for people that they didn't even know that they needed what they need, right? Or that I did that. And it's just fun to lift people up and get them, support them from where they are and give them a boost to where they're going. I love that.
Yeah, me too. That's so awesome. Melissa, what an honor to speak with you today. And it's just been a lot of fun too.
Thanks, Jennifer. I know I do think we could talk for hours.
Yeah, we could. Thank you so much, Melissa.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for listening to the Awaken on Purpose podcast. Please visit me and subscribe to the podcast on iTunes or at awakenonpurpose.com so you never miss an episode. To learn more about how you can achieve a fulfilled life, live your purpose, and make an impact as a mission-driven leader, visit me at jenniferspore.com